morning, everybody, and welcome to Board Game Breakfast. I'm Tom Vasel, and we're glad you decided to once again join us as we talk about board games and the people who play them. Board Game Breakfast is sponsored in part by Pandasaurus Games, who makes all kinds of cool games. We have Gods Love Dinosaurs, a game about, well, making dinosaurs and then having those dinosaurs lay eggs to make more dinosaurs, but meanwhile eating prey all over the place. And we have this little cool card game, which my daughter says is one of her favorite games of the year, Hanami, a game about placing cards out in front of you in ascending and descending order. See my review for more details. All right, we're going to get started here. There's a lot of things to go over. This is a big holiday week here in America because it's Thanksgiving week, although you know, it's a very different one because it's the year 2020. That being said, the Dice Tower is still going to be doing some things differently this week. We'd like to give our folks time off once in a while. And to that end, I will not be doing a live Q&A today, but that will be moved to later on in the week. So it will still be happening. And Z's going to be doing a Q&A, so keep an eye out for all that sort of thing. But let's get started with the show. Here we go.
So, in board game, we win, we lose. Question, what is your most epic board game loss?
I think for me, it was definitely a game of Cult Express. We had, it was 7 or 8 players. We were using the Marshal and Prisoners expansion, and I was the Marshal, as I will tend to be. And things were going fine. We were I think we were almost at the end of the 3rd round, maybe even into the 4th round. I had a couple of my objectives. It was going fine. No one had punched me. And then everyone just kind of got sick of me. And then in the space of 3 turns, I got punched, went into another room, got punched back. I got punched like 3 times in a row. So I went from, pretty face to completely bruised. I managed to stagger out onto the roof. And then in the 5th round, we had the station card where if you get punched off the roof, you just fall off the train and get left in the dust. And Django actually shot me off and had a turn before me, and I just couldn't. I had no way of avoiding it. So
you just like running amok and trying to just annoy everybody, and then as you say, everyone's sick of you.
Yeah, they banded together, and it was hilarious.
That was hilarious. It was like so epic, and town just like flew off the train.
Yeah.
And died.
Left in the dirt.
And what is yours? Run in the comment sections below. We are Meeple University in YouTube and also on the Dice Tower for a few videos there. See you next time.
Hi, I'm Josh from the YouTube channel Josh Yaks. As usual, I'm here to talk about another cool thematic game mechanism, but this particular mechanism is one of my favorites for what it adds to both the gameplay and to the game's theme. So let's talk about the noise mechanism, or the clank, in the game Clank, a deck building adventure. Shh. In Clank, players are adventurers who must get into a dungeon, grab as much valuable loot as possible, and then get out again before succumbing to injuries sustained by the Guardian Dragon. All the action is powered by a hand of cards that gradually grows and improves, if I can pick up the cards, through standard deck building mechanisms. This is all pretty straightforward, but what really ratchets up the tension is the fact that many of the actions that players do are noisy, causing Clank cubes to be put into the dragon bag. The next time the dragon attacks, when the dragon attack card is drawn, it could be your Clank cubes that are drawn from the bag, which then turn into hits against your life total. Of course, most of the best gear is also the noisiest. A singing sword that gives 3 skill and 2 swords, plus 1 clank. A monkey bot 3000 that allows you to immediately draw 3 cards, plus 3 clank. Thankfully, there are also stealth cards that allow you to remove clank. So is your strategy going to be to go charging into the dungeon full tilt, making all the noise, grabbing the very best loot, and getting out of there quick? Or are you going to sneak in and do things more slowly, but also more carefully? How much do you want to push your luck? It's that push your luck element of the clank mechanism that creates so much exciting tension in the game. I'll catch you soon with another thematic game mechanism. And meanwhile, why don't you swing my Josh Yaks YouTube channel and say hello. Cheers. Who left pots and pans lying around?
go any farther, I also want to do a shout out to some of our Kickstarter backers. We want to say thank you to Owen Maza and Rachel Velasco, to Andrew Keel, to Daniel Zayas, and to Board Games with Nirmas. Thank you all for supporting Dice Tower. We really, really appreciate it. Okay, so this week I want to talk about things I found on the internet, but these are going to be Dice Tower specific things. But I wanted to mention these very specifically because they're pretty cool. One I mentioned last week, and that is that our promos, many of our promos can now be found at the Board Game Geek store. So we hope that you enjoy that. Now, I want to be clear, some people were confused. There's nothing from our current Kickstarter there. We want to make sure our backers get that stuff first, so I will wait till every backer has this stuff in their hands before we would even consider sending it there. And even then we would delay it because we want our backers to have a first chance at these different promos. These are from years past, like 2018 and earlier. But still, if you want to see that or get some Dice Tower merchandise, you can go to BoardGameGeek.com and see that stuff at their store that they have there. And that goes and supports us, and we really appreciate it. Secondly, we really want to talk about Dice Tower Digest. Dice Tower Digest is our newsletter, and it's a way where I can tell you what's going on in the Dice Tower. And sometimes people say, we can't watch everything. We can't listen to everything. Right, I get that. So our major announcements and everything will go through an email that gets sent out every 2 weeks. So we're not going to flood your inbox, and I'm definitely not giving these emails to anybody. This is just a way for us to communicate with you. There's also contests involved in it and a way to get to know the Dice Tower. We might highlight a couple of our things that we've posted. And I would highly recommend becoming a member of Dice Tower Digest because soon, and I'm not telling you when, we're going to run a mega contest that's only for folks there, and I'm not even going to announce it on other things. It's just going to be on Dice Tower Digest. So keep an eye out for that. And you can find all that information and sign up at DicetowerDigest.com.
Hey, I'm Grant with Grant's Game Rex, and today I want to recommend one of my favorite new party games of 2020, MTV The Throwback Music Party Game. I had never seen a music video until I was like 11 years old because we didn't have cable in my house, and I was visiting my buddy and we watched MTV for my first time, and it blew my mind. I was like, what? This is the coolest thing ever. You can make movies about songs? Who knew you could do it? Anything is possible. You can mix everything together. We can make, I'm gonna put beef jerky on my sandwiches. Ha ha! Beef jerky sandwich, beef jerky sandwich, beef jerky sandwich, beef jerky sandwich. In MTV, you are playing as two teams trying to get your teammates to guess different musicians and artists. There are different categories, so for this one I could only use one word, for this one I could use lyrics, for this one I could hum or dance or do something else like that. I like that there's the different categories in this game because it means that you don't need to know everything about all the musicians, you just need to know snippets. I will say, if you don't know anything about music, this is probably not the game for you. You know, if you were on my team and I was like, oh, I want to dance with somebody, I want to feel the heat with somebody, oh, I want to dance with somebody who loves me, and you were like, is that Carly Rae Jepsen? 1, I'm gonna make fun of you. 2, we're gonna lose this game. And 3, I'm gonna tell you to go home so you can get some Whitney in your life.
Hey folks, welcome back to Dad Boards. Anthony here. You know, my son AJ really enjoys trains. He watches YouTube videos on trains. He's got toy trains. So recently, my wife and I surprised him by taking him down to the local train station and let him watch a few of the NJ Transit trains go by, and he was absolutely mesmerized. Take a look.
Choo-choo.
Where's the choo-choo? Choo-choo? Oh boy.
Oh, wow.
So today we're checking out Metro X from Game Right Games. This is a flip and write game, or they call it the rail and write game. Basically, you'll be flipping over these 15 transit cards and using the numbers on them to draw spaces in the train windows and then cross off that many number of stations on that particular colored route. So give me 5 here, folks. Here's 5 reasons why I like the game Metro X. First is it's a roll and write, flip and write game. I love that genre. I know it's crowded, but I'm not tired of them yet, especially, and this goes into number 2, when there's a bit of a theme on it. I like the subway thing. It's different. Reason number 3, this is a thinky flip and write. You want to plan, but you can't plan perfectly because one of these cards is the reshuffle. So you can't just count on certain cards coming out. When you need them, you might not see them again. Reason number 4, this game plays well at 2. A lot of times it's only my wife and I playing games, so it's good to have this on the shelf. And finally, number 5, I love these dry erase boards that you get with the game. 2-sided, nice and colorful, clear. It tells you the lines, the subway line names and the colors, and here's the points you get for completing them. Dry erase. Thumbs up. Thanks for watching, folks. Enjoy the rest of your breakfast and keep on chugging.
If you've ever played a game with one of these dial counters in it, you know how frustrating it can be if it gets accidentally bumped, and then all of a sudden you've lost the value it was trying to keep track of. So for today's project, we're going to make our own way over-designed version with dials that pop into position so they can't be easily bumped. We're going to do it with just simple tools and common materials. So to make one of these, start by printing out the pattern that I provided in the link below. Using a glue stick or spray glue if you have it, glue the template onto a piece of cereal box cardboard or something of similar weight. Once the glue has dried, heavily score all the dashed lines using a ruler and something like a knitting needle or a butter knife. Then cut out all the shapes along the solid lines using a sharp knife or scissors. Carefully pre-bend all the score lines. It's important that the cones are pre-bent or else the snapping feature won't work well. To assemble the pieces, start by gluing together the cone shapes. You can use a very thin bead of hot glue, or if you use white glue, I'd recommend peeling off the printed layer of the cereal box cardboard before applying the glue, otherwise the glue won't set well. Once the cones are complete, glue the smaller ones in place on the base piece. If they don't match correctly, the dials won't work well. Then glue the number rings in place on top of the tabs of the 2 remaining cones. Make sure the black ring goes on the cone labeled B2. Position these 2 dials in place on top of the base cones with the matching letters. Now we can see how this snap mechanism is going to work. As the dial is turned, the faces of the cone slide past each other, and that forces the dial upward slightly, and then it pops back down into place in the next increment. Next, position the faceplate on top. Fold the 4 large flaps around to the back of the counter and glue in place. Then trim off the corners of the faceplate if you'd like. Take 2 plastic bottle caps and paint or decorate them to become the control knobs. Here I used aluminum tape from the hardware store and smoothed it down to look like brushed metal. I then wrapped the sides in electrical tape to complete the look. You could also paint the cap in whatever color or pattern you like. Then hot glue the caps in place on top of the cones. And there you go, a very unique little dial counter that detents into each number. I hope you enjoyed today's video, and I'll see you on the next episode.
I wanted to say earlier that we would have less content on the Dice Tower this week, the video channel, but that's not quite true. Well, first of all, podcast is going up tomorrow, as always, and me and Jeremy Howard jumps in as a guest since Eric Summer is moving, and so I hope that you enjoy that podcast. But on the channel itself, what we did is we took our Spiel Digital videos that we posted and we played those live, and we've cut them up into pieces so you can, if you want to watch just a very specific game, these are going to be posted over this week. So if you already watched it, this is not new content. That being said, we do have a few pieces and bits of new content. I have a few reviews that will be going up over the course of this week. Our live shows are mostly canceled. We'll have them all back next week. Board Game Breakfast, Crowd Surfing will be back next week. But I will be doing a Q&A on Black Friday this week, and Z's doing a Q&A. So there's a couple other things going up, and our contributors have come in full froth. There's a lot of videos that they'll be doing, so keep an eye out for that stuff as the week goes by.
Howdy folks, welcome to By the Numbers. My name is Hunter Thomason from the Family Showdown. On this episode of By the Numbers, we're continuing my Through the Years series, where I look at the best game on Board Game Geek by year. Started with 1970, this time, 2001. Take a look at the top 5. We see the number 1 game is Devon, coming in at 459. But it's the 9th best abstract strategy game. As I said, Devon is an abstract strategy game. It's for 2 players. It's part of the Project GIPF series. Or is it GIPF? In Devon, you're moving your pieces. You have one player plays white, one player plays black, as is the traditional abstract strategy game colors. But there's also 3 Devon pieces, and you must keep your pieces connected to those Devon pieces. Otherwise, they get knocked off the board.
They would move twice this way. Boom, boom. These pieces have just become disconnected from everything that's red, and they would be completely removed from the board.
Take a look at the ratings, over 4,000 of them. We see lots of 7s and 8s for an overall rating of 7.5. Taking a look at the weight, it comes in at 2.67. It's one of those easy to learn, a lifetime to master games. If you're looking for a great gift for Christmas, Devon might be the game for you. See you next time.
What is up? My name is Melissa McCack, and this is Smashing Buttons and Slamming Cards. This is a segment where I talk about a video game I love and I connect it to a board game I love. And this week, I want to talk about Among Us. Among Us is a video game that has pretty much taken everybody by storm. A bunch of people are playing Among Us right now. It is pretty much a traitor video game where you are crewmates, but 1 or maybe 2 of you are the imposter. The crewmates are trying to complete their tasks, which are pretty easy tasks that you have to complete. All the while, there's an imposter going around killing all the crewmates and sabotaging things. I want to connect that to Spyfall. So I could have connected Among Us to a bunch of different trader games, but I wanted to connect it to a light, breezy, pretty short trader game, and that is Spyfall. Spyfall is just, you have these cards that tell you what sort of location you are in, but one of you is the spy, and you're trying to figure out where everybody is at, because you don't know the location, but everybody's asking each other questions to try to figure out who the spy is. Do you know where we are? So I wanted to compare that to Among Us, because in Among Us, you have this way of calling an emergency meeting, which you could do in Spyfall, where it's like, all right, stop the clock, and then you could accuse somebody of being the spy, or the spy could stop the clock and say, I know where you all are, I'm the spy, and you are all in the hotel room. And also in Among Us, you're asking each other questions like, where were you? Where did you see the body? Blah, 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 blah. And that's all about Spyfall. Spyfall, you're just asking a bunch of questions to figure out what's going on. Anyway, that is it for this week. Thank you so much for watching. If you'd like, you can check out mine and my brother's channel called Room 51.
Hey there everyone, it's Jen, the board game librarian, flipping some pages and pushing some cubes with my segment From the Page to the Table, where I pair a book and board game together that share a common theme. Woo. As always, I'll start off with my book first, and this is one that was really super popular back in the 1990s, and that's Anita Diamant's The Red Tent. This is a religious historical fiction book which follows Dinah, one of our first women portrayed in the Bible. In here we have Rachel, we have Leah, Bilhah and Zilpah, and I'm probably saying those, the 4 wives of Jacob. So we have a very early book that focuses on our heroines of the Bible instead. So with The Red Tent, I'm going to pair it with Kings of Israel. This is a 2 to 4 player cooperative game by Fun Hill Games that is pandemic-esque. So we also have a religiously themed board game. And again, you don't have to be a religious person to appreciate this game. In this game, you are looking to rid Israel of sin and to spread altars across the land. One of the things that I really appreciated about this game was the historical accuracy, and in terms of the biblical accuracy as well. And every player has their own character that they can play as. And just moving around Israel, to me, was one of the hardest things. So just spreading religion and ridding the land of sin in here was very difficult, as it was, I'm sure, back in the time period that this game takes place in. If you haven't subscribed to Literary Gamers on YouTube, we are now fully launched. There's videos on there. Hooray! Give us a subscribe. It means so much to both of us. And as always, happy breakfast, everyone.
As we come to the end of 2020, and this is the week here in America where we celebrate the holiday Thanksgiving, and people talk about things that they're thankful for. And constantly online, I see people talking about, they're excited that 2020 is almost over. That, we can't wait till 2021, although I would argue that the magical flipping of the calendar from December 31st to January 1st is not going to magically change things. And yes, 2020 has been a tough time for many people. The world has changed dramatically. And one of the things that people could do is they could say, let's be thankful for all the things that we don't have in 2020. On the gaming side specifically, we don't have conventions, so we should be thankful for when we can have conventions again with one another and so on. But I want to be specifically thankful for what we have in the year 2020. I think 2020 is a good year. I know, it's kind of anathema to say at this point because it's easy to hate on this year, but there's so many things to be thankful for. I know that this has been a year of heartache and stuff for many people, but I want to point out that there are good things that happen. First of all, I'm thankful for this era of technology that we live in. Sure, many of us have been stuck home for a good majority of the year, but YouTube and streaming services exist, and there's so much content to watch. And it's so easy to be in contact with people. I'm sure you, like me, are getting tired of Zoom calls and Skype calls and Google Hangouts and all that jazz. But we have them. We have that opportunity. Had something like this happened, 50 years ago or even 20 years ago, this would be a very completely different thing, and you would feel even more isolated and alone. The fact that even here on the Dice Tower, we have the ability to stream to people and do that sort of thing that you can watch at home, I think is amazing. The fact that we have all these different devices, from computers to iPads to smartphones, etc. I think that's fantastic, and I'm very thankful for that sort of thing, and that I am able to stay in touch with people all over the world despite this. I'm also thankful for just the fact that I've had more time this year to talk to people. I've called and had long conversations with people that I would not have had before. I feel, that there's just some extra time. I've definitely spent more time with my family. I've just had more time to do that, and I've been able to talk to both family that's at a distance to my family at home. We've been able to do things together, and that has just been an enjoyable treat. Yes, the hecticness of jumping from convention to convention, there's certainly some excitement in that, and I'll be willing to get right back in that. But there is something to be said to being at home and just spending some time with one another. So I'm thankful for that. I'm really thankful for the Dice Tower staff and contributors. And, you might say, Tom, you talk about this often, or you might say, Tom, you don't talk about this enough. I would go on the latter side. We have a completely different slate of contributors, for example, here to Board Game Breakfast than we had when it first started. And while I'm super thankful for those folks who were here when we first started, don't you think the quality has improved and it's gotten better and better? It's really exciting. Every week someone comes on and goes, I don't like any of these contributors. And that's fine. You can be that Grinch if you want to. But I think the folks who contribute to Board Game Breakfast are doing a stupendous job. And I'm excited to see all these different points of views. And I've gotten more reviewers this year than ever before on the Dice Tower, with a myriad of different voices about gaming, and I really like that. And here at the Dice Tower, especially here in the studio and stuff, we've had such camaraderie and we get along so well, and it's just been fantastic that even though there is crisis worldwide, it tends to have brought us together more, and for that I'm very thankful. I have always had gigantic Thanksgiving dinners. I've invited everyone that I could think of. I just have a fantastic time. This year will be the smallest one I've run since I've been married. But I'm still thankful. I can eat the food. I can be with my family. We're not starving. There's not active military war going on in our country right now. There's a lot of really good things, and we sometimes get so caught up in the negativity. Several months ago, I decided to cut a good chunk of social media out of my life. I cut Twitter out completely, and Facebook I cut down to where I'm mostly just looking inside the Dice Tower groups and a few other groups that I'm members of. And that has completely changed my outlook. I was thinking everyone is negative all the time. But then I realized that a good chunk of it's just social media being negative. When I pay attention to the people around me, the people in my neighborhood, the people in my church, the people who I'm friends with, the people in the Dice Tower, I found that people are generally trying to work together. We're all getting through this together. Couple that with the announcements of vaccines and, any light at the end of the tunnel. And how can we be upset? We all got older this year. Some of us have lost people, some of us has lost jobs, and I'm not trying to wash all that away. All right, there were tough things that happened this year, but we cannot let the tough things that happen also wash away all the good things that happened. The Dice Tower, we've striven to, we lost 2 of our conventions this year. There's a good chance that we'll lose a few more in the future. And that was a struggle for us, both financially and just, morale-wise. But with everyone rallying around it, with those of you watching who've rallied around us, that's a really big deal for us. And just the emails I get of support, the conversations that I have, and I know, again, that I'm not trying to pretend everything is rosy and peaches and cream everywhere, but I will say that we should look on the bright side of life, and I hope that the Dice Tower is helping lead the charge on that to some degree. So thank you to all of you. Thank you for each of those of you. I talk about different people who support the Dice Tower, but those of you who can't support the Dice Tower and you just watch us, I also really appreciate you. I appreciate all my contributors and everybody. We have had people come and go from the Dice Tower, but even the ones who've left, they're going to start their own channels, or they've dropped out of gaming, or whatever the reason is, I'm so thankful for them. It's been great. 2020 has been a good year. I know it's a weird thing to say, right? You're like, oh no, there's so many bad things happen. Sure. But what about all the good things? We cannot forget them, and I'm thankful for them. I'm thankful for you. It's a good hobby we're in. Let's keep moving.
So I'm not going to really define dice. I think people know what dice are, right? But I remember when I was getting into the hobby, I don't have a background in RPGs or role-playing games. And so a lot of times when people would describe dice, they didn't make a lot of sense to me. So I'm going to go over how dice are named. Let's go. So usually when you're describing a dice or naming a die, it's going to have the letter D, and then the number following it is the number of sides that are on the die. So a D6 is a traditional 6-sided die with the numbers 1 through 6 on it. Nice and easy. Some of them, we have here D20. So this is going to have the numbers 1 through 20 on it. Some sort of geometric shape. This is a D8. It has the numbers 1 through 8 on it. You're seeing a pattern here, right? So a D4 has 4 sides. This is kind of like a weird triangular pyramid. That's kind of geometry class here. There could be a die, and I don't have one handy, but this is a D12. A D12 could, if it had the numbers 1 through 6 on it, twice. It could be a 2D6. So it's going to have the numbers 1 through 6 on it twice. So do 2D6. This is a D12 though. Bad example. And then this one always threw me. This is a percentage die. You don't really use this in board games very much, but it has double numbers on it, and it's kind of weird, but it gives you percentages or decimals. Yeah. Those are dice.
Hi, I'm Ambie, and today I'm going to talk about Count of Nine, which is a solitaire city building card game. In Count of Nine, you're going through a deck of 9 cards that each have buildings and resources on them, and you're trying to build different buildings to get the most points. Each card is double-sided with different buildings showing and different resources showing on the tops and bottoms. And as you go through the deck, whichever cards are showing are what you can use. You can use either those resources or build those buildings that are showing. At the beginning of the game, you set aside one of the big scoring buildings, and that card is your goal for the game to build that building. So you can't use it during the rest of the game. The big buildings have prerequisites of other buildings that need to be built in order to build them. So you're going to need to be building a lot of buildings in order. And also, some buildings give you resources when you build them, so you can use those resources later, but others give you nothing. So if you need the resources that are on that card or something else that's on that card, you need to make sure you use that before you build the building. While you're playing the game, you go through the deck multiple times and you're allowed to rotate cards or rotate the whole deck after each time you go through the deck, just to try to get to the other parts of the cards that you need. Instead of lasting a set number of rounds, you get to choose how long the game lasts. So you get the number of points for the buildings that you get, but you lose points for the number of rounds you take. So you want to be the most efficient in your play. It's fun planning out which buildings you need to build and in which order to be the most efficient and get the most points. And it's also interesting which building you choose at the beginning to set aside as your goal, because you can't use the other side of that card. And so you want to choose one that gives you good points, but also you don't want to take away something that's really useful. Since you need specific buildings and resources to build other buildings, you want to know what's on all the cards and what's on each side, but there's only 9 cards in the game, so after you've played it a few times, you'll be able to remember more easily. Overall, Count of Nine is a pretty fun little efficiency engine that feels like you're building a lot more than just the 9 cards in the game. Bye!
And that's it for another Board Game Breakfast. Man, lots of cool things on the horizon. The Winter Spectacular is starting in just a few weeks, and we'll be talking about the best games of the year. You know, earlier when I talked about things to be thankful for, I should mention lots of great stuff came out this year. Lots of board games came out. It wasn't like, wow, man, we'll never remember 2020. Yeah, there's some cool things, and we'll talk about those, and that's coming up, so I'm excited about that. But right now, if you have a chance, take some time, have a breather, drink your morning coffee or hot chocolate or tea or water or whatever it might be. Get ready for today. It's going to be a good one. Things are looking up. Until next time, I'm Tom Vasel, and you've been watching Board Game Breakfast on the Dice Tower.
Thanks for watching Board Game Breakfast. Tune in each week for your daily dose of gaming goodness with Tom Vasel and all the gang. Until next time, I'm Eric Summerer, and you've been watching Board Game Breakfast, a Dice Tower production.